Hello there, and thank you for joining this week's edition of Northwest Newsweek. I'm Danielle Bain. A recently released report on clean drinking water has officials with Mattawa and Nan concerned. They're worried about the allotted funding to ensure communities can properly operate and maintain water and wastewater systems. But Indigenous Services Minister Patty Hajdu says she's committed to working closely with affected First Nations to help close this financial gap. Kurt Black has the details.
There are currently 34 long-term drinking water advisories in the province, many of which are in the Northwest. The Parliamentary Budget Officer has revealed that while the capital costs to assist these First Nation communities are covered, the allotted spending for operation and maintenance will only secure 2/3 of funding. It's estimated that an additional $138 million would be needed annually to ensure affected areas have the ability to repair and maintain their water and wastewater systems.
We got to try and get the resources to the First Nation, A lot of support goes to design engineers and consultants and, contractors. Resources need to get to the First Nations to operate and maintain these facilities. And we were trying to work and trying to stress that at Mattawa First Nations.
Derek Fox, the Grand Chief of Nan, released a statement calling on the federal government to better support the operation and maintenance areas of water system installation. Patty Hajdu, the Minister of Indigenous Services, says they're making progress, but there's still plenty of work to do.
I think the expectation is that we get this done together. Obviously, the Government of Canada has a large role to play, and since 2015, when we arrived on the scene and made a focused and concerted effort to lift these boil water advisories and attach dollars to that commitment, we've made progress. But there's still more to do, and I expect that we'll get it done together.
There is more spending, but we need to develop a transition plan. There's no transition plan for when you design and build a $11 million water plant that has 4 different chemicals now than, compared to what it used to have with just one filter and chlorine.
Hajdu hopes many of the remaining long-term drinking water advisories on reserves will be lifted in the next 12 months, but isn't committing to a new deadline on ending those boil water advisories. Kurt Black, TBT News.
Shuttered in 2014 by Resolute, residents and town council fought hard to save Fort Frances pulp and paper mill, but in 2020, demolition crews began dismantling portions of the mill. This past weekend, a major piece of the mill was forever erased from the skyline following an early morning implosion of the former Kraft mill. Adam Riley has more.
If you were one of the many people who worked in the Fort Frances mill, this might be hard to watch. On November 27th, 100 years of pulp and paper manufacturing came crashing to the ground as crews with Canadian National Demolition detonated explosives to bring down the former Kraft mill. The act was carried out shortly after 5 o'clock that morning as crews wanted to avoid large crowds gathering, but as evidenced by this video and others, that didn't stop some residents from watching the show. Mayor June Call says each time more of the mill is demolished and hauled away, it makes her heart ache, but she remains positive of the future.
It's very difficult to see that mill coming down, but I am looking forward to good things put on that property eventually. We've not been privy to any of the plans by the 2 partners who have the mill property. There are lots of rumors, of course, but then that's typical, isn't it, that there are always little rumors going around.
Part of her optimism stems from the fact that the biomass generator is still among the standing structures, noting that some buildings on the former site will find a second life. Call says another development that has come to light is the future of the bridge into International Falls.
Resolute has sold it, and it's to one of our First Nations groups, and they'll be hopefully taking it over before long. The town has a lot of concerns, and we voiced our concerns about making sure that tolls remain low and that the maintenance continues to happen on it and so on and so forth. So once the new company takes that over as well, we'll see what's happening there.
Call says she hopes to see the federal government step in and purchase the whole bridge from the owners. One of the many projects Fort Frances has on the books right now is an improved gateway at the border for travelers. As for the mill site itself, crews continue to remove debris from the area, which is expected to take up to 18 to 22 months. Adam Riley, TBT News.
Details have been released regarding a fatal highway collision west of Dryden last Sunday morning. Northwest Region OPP say an eastbound tractor trailer crashed into another transport which was parked on the side of Highway 17. The two occupants of the parked transport were not hurt, but the driver of the eastbound rig, a 31-year-old man from Woodstock, Ontario, was pronounced dead at the scene. The highway was completely closed for 9 hours between Dryden and Vermilion Bay while OPP conducted their investigation. Local MPP Judith Monteith Farrell says her party's plan to raise Ontario's minimum wage to $20 an hour by 2026 is simply the right thing to do. NDP leader Andrea Horvath made the campaign-style announcement Tuesday, hoping to rally support ahead of the June election.
The price of everything is going up, and people are working their tails off just to try to make ends meet. We know that
the Ford government is set to raise the minimum wage from $14.35 an hour to $15 on January 1st, after freezing the rate when the PCs came into power back in 2018. But the official opposition insists the increase doesn't go far enough and is pledging, if elected, to bump it up an additional $1 every year until it tops out at $20 an hour. Monteith Farrell believes even at that rate of pay, minimum wage workers will still spend the vast majority of their money locally, helping municipal economies across Ontario.
Working poor cannot afford to live on the minimum wage that is in place right now. And that's very evident. And it's evident to all the people that are trying to make people survive. It's actually a disincentive because a lot of people can't afford to go to work. They can't afford the transportation or the childcare. And when you have this graduated approach with supports for small business, it just makes sense because people who are even making $20 an hour, every dollar is spent in the community on necessities.
Monteith Farrell insists lending a hand to the working poor will save the province in healthcare and other costs down the road. Last week, a bombshell council meeting in Emo revealed a crisis at the township's office, which was addressing the continuity of services for the community. Adam Riley has an update on the current situation.
Operations in the township of Emo are attempting to return to normal following staffing challenges, which the municipality itself has deemed unprecedented. Documents obtained by TBT News confirm the Ministry of Labour is conducting an investigation into allegations of workplace harassment. A complainant alleges the employer did not conduct an appropriate investigation into the complaint. As well, the workplace harassment program does not have measures for workers to report incidents to a person other than the employer or supervisor, even if that employer or supervisor is the alleged harasser. At a special meeting of council late last month, it was revealed the ministry had performed a field visit, a clerk from another community had temporarily assumed duties for Emo, and that the municipality was experiencing staffing challenges. A notice on the town's website states the town office is currently closed, and over the next few weeks, staff will resume full services from the office if possible. Job postings on the town's website indicate it is still looking for both a deputy treasurer and a casual administrative assistant. A visit to the township offices by a reporters revealed that a new temporary chief administrative officer, former Fort Frances CAO Doug Brown, was being appointed this week to carry out duties for the town. In a phone call, Brown confirmed this appointment is temporary, as well that out of the 3 staff positions in the office, 2 people are on leave and a third has left the organization completely, leaving Brown as the only staff member on site. Multiple attempts to interview Emo Mayor Harold McQuaker were made, but were unsuccessful. The township has been given a pair of dates to become compliant with the orders issued by the ministry, including to implement a policy for reporting workplace harassment to someone other than an employer or the supervisor, and to investigate the allegations of workplace harassment. Adam Riley, TBT News.
The Faculty and Staff Association at the Northern Ontario School of Medicine is not happy with the Ford government's draft regulations for the new standalone Nossum University. A university is usually governed under a bicameral model, meaning there are 2 sources of authority: the Board of Governors, which oversees administration and finance, and the University Senate, which governs the academic side. But according to Nossum Faculty and Staff Association President Dr. Brian Ross, that is not what the government proposed for the med school, and he explains why that could be a problem.
The concern is that at the moment, the regulations that have been published have essentially the Senate reporting to the board. So they're no longer independent. And that means that The people that sit in the Senate, the teachers, the faculty, don't have the final say over things like curriculum and programs. And every other university in Canada does.
The consultation period will be ending soon, which means the government will be taking a look at everyone's opinions and concerns before they come to a final decision on how the university will be governed. When we come back, some restrictions at land borders may have been relaxed, but a new variant and increased infection rates south of the border might keep the urge to travel at bay. The towns of Rainy River and Fort Frances are closely tied to their neighboring communities across the U.S. border. This week, after Ottawa eased some of its border restrictions, it seemed as though residents would finally be able to reconnect with their American counterparts. But the arrival of the new Omicron variant and ongoing concerns over COVID-19 infection rates may have dashed those hopes. Adam Riley explains.
Canadians returning home at land borders no longer need proof of a negative PCR test on trips 72 hours or less. Despite the more relaxed rules, traffic at the two border crossings in the Rainy River district didn't appear to increase significantly this week. The move is being welcomed by the mayor of Rainy River, Deb Ewald, who says residents of her community have close ties with neighboring Baudette. Rainy River's downtown core doesn't have much in the wake of large stores or restaurants, and the town lacks many amenities that are readily available less than a kilometer away across the border.
We share a lot of services, for instance, hockey. We have kids from Canada that play on the American side because we don't have enough kids ourselves to have a team. They have a swimming pool, and we use it from the Canadian side a lot. There's a lot of shared stuff back and forth that, of course, for the last 20 months has not been able to take place.
Ewald says she does have concerns regarding the new Omicron variant, which as of Friday is confirmed in 6 cases of COVID-19 in Ontario, and like others will be monitoring the situation. It's a similar case in Fort Frances where very few vehicles were seen crossing to and from International Falls. According to Fort Frances Mayor June Call, many residents are hesitant to cross the border or even travel in general, which has come as a boon to local businesses.
We've got into the habit of actually using our own local businesses, which isn't that great to finally know that that's happening, because there is so much out shopping done in a small community, and not just across the border, but to Thunder Bay and Winnipeg as well. And people, I don't think, are leaving quite as much yet as they were hoping to be able to, because I think a lot of people are still reluctant.
On the evening prior to the restrictions being relaxed, the Northwestern Health Unit released a recommendation for travelers to avoid visiting Minnesota, which borders both Rainy River and Fort Frances, for non-essential reasons. The medical officer of health cited the neighboring state has one of the highest infection rates for COVID-19 in North America. Adam Riley, TBT News.
Travel to those American states is being discouraged by the Thunder Bay District's medical officer of health. Dr. Janet DeMille has put out a travel advisory recommending all residents to avoid Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Michigan. But DeMille is encouraged over news that Ontario will soon expand booster doses to all baby boomers and some Generation Xers. Corey Nordstrom has more.
Those looking to take advantage of the newly laxed border policies should think twice, says medical officer Dr. Janet DeMille. She is advising those in the Thunder Bay District to avoid non-essential travel to Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Michigan, which all rank in the top 5 of American states for highest numbers of COVID cases.
The CDC has indicated that has ranked them as high community transmission, literally in all the counties of those 3 states, and that does include the counties that are right next to the international border that's close to us.
DeMille is most worried about Minnesota, noting that it's the most frequent travel destination for locals venturing into the United States. But she says they've already seen proof that backs their worries about more cross-border travel.
We've also had some recent cases that acquired the virus in those states and brought it back here, and then we saw a little bit of spread from them.
In other news, the province has announced an expansion of its booster dose eligibility. Starting December 13th, anyone over 50 will be able to book their 3rd dose of vaccine in Ontario for a date 6 months after their 2nd shot.
It does work in reducing the number of cases in those who have been boosted, as well as it preserves that protection against severe illness requiring hospitalization or ICU admission, which is certainly something that we want to do.
In January, Ontario will further expand eligibility for booster doses based on age and risk. Corey Nordstrom, TBT News.
A mining conference was held virtually this week, hosted by the Thunder Bay Community Economic Development Commission and the Canadian Trade Expo. The goal of the event was to identify and meet the needs of all 7 mines across the Northwest and connect the region's biggest players under one virtual roof. Alex Flood has the details.
This has worked out very well. It's achieved our objectives.
Mining representatives, manufacturers, and suppliers from around the region tuned in virtually this week to exchange updates and provide information regarding their progress on a number of mining projects in the Northwest. The 3-day event featured technical talks on the mine's advanced exploration projects, workforce development, career planning, as well as a partnership piece with Indigenous associates. John Mason, the project manager of mining services with Thunder Bay's CEDC, says the virtual conference also provided mines the chance to expand their operations.
The notion here is a setup between procurement managers from the mines and the supply and service businesses. They could set up individual 15-minute sessions where they can, in confidence, meet virtually and talk about opportunities around business to either help build or operate their operation. Same with interested workforce. They could go and meet with HR managers, coordinators from the mines, and talk about their career aspirations and see what gaps are out there.
The closest operation to Thunder Bay is Clean Air Metals, a platinum and palladium project 15 minutes north of the city. Clean Air Metals released the results of a preliminary economic assessment, which includes a new standalone milling complex and waste storage facility with mill feed from 2 deposits.
We've got an accomplished management team, and we're well financed and a social license to explore with written communication protocol with 3 local First Nation communities that are active in the area.
We've got, another 45 people that sat in for your presentation, Jeff. Those are big numbers. We did one of these sessions for the Northeast, and I can tell you that you guys in the Northwest just blew everybody out of the water in the Northeast. So.
Mason says the virtual mining conference exceeded his initial expectations as the event reached viewers on a global scale, and dozens of resumes were sent to mines across the region with interested applicants looking to build on these growing projects. Alex Flood, TBT News.
Now some shocking video to show you from Kenora following a collision between a train and a tractor-trailer unit that fortunately yielded no injuries. An official with the Kenora OPP says the incident took place shortly before noon when a tractor-trailer unit attempting to cross the tracks got hung up. It is unknown if the driver fled the vehicle prior to the collision, but as these images show, it was quite the harrowing experience. The OPP says members of CP's own police force are en route to investigate, and there has been no word if the Transportation Safety Board would be conducting an investigation of its own. Coming up after the break, Manitowoc looks to update two pieces of municipal legislation that were last updated in the 80s. The Township of Manitowoc is looking for public input as it begins to update two key documents for the community, the town's official plan and property standards bylaw. And while legislation within communities are always getting updated, what makes these documents so special is they haven't been updated since the 1980s. Adam Riley has the story.
The Chief Administrative Officer for the Township of Manitowoc says the town's property standards bylaw is in place. However, there is a slight catch.
But it is 35 years old.
A property standards bylaw guides how homes are built, how they look, and the upkeep of the properties themselves. A lot has changed since the mid-'80s, including a recent change in policy by the provincial government. In 2018, the province downloaded the enforcement of the Residential Tenancies Act to municipalities.
Specifically around where a tenant is complaining about perhaps the temperature that a landlord is setting in the apartment or the house, or whether there's hot water available or whether the windows close properly. And it's the municipality's responsibility to act on those complaints.
McLean says modernizing the property standards bylaw won't change too much, but the township is asking for input from the public to make the bylaw unique to Manitowoc. Otherwise,
if we don't pass our own, then we have to follow what the province has put out, which may in some cases be even more strict around when the municipality has to act.
Meanwhile, Manitowoc has also embarked upon a process to update its official plan that is also a product of the 80s. However, this move was spurred by the residents themselves and not by the municipality. According to McLean, there are several initiatives identified by residents that the current plan does not allow for due to current zoning rules.
Such as waterfront development, cottage lot development, rural residential development, agricultural lands. We don't have any of these provisions in our current official plan or in our zoning.
Currently, the town is hosting several engagement sessions with groups representing different demographics in Manitowoc for input. Mayor John McEachern says he's pleased to see administration tackle both of these projects simultaneously and is encouraging residents to come out and participate.
We need to know exactly what the residents of the town expect and want from this town. And this new plan will at least provide that so that we can look at what is feasible and what isn't feasible. I'm hoping that we will be able to pass at least the property standard bylaw relatively soon, and the official plan, that has to come.
And while McEachern and McLean believe the property standards bylaw can be updated within this term of council, the official plan may end up being implemented by the next council following the 2022 municipal election. Adam Riley, TBT News.
Hundreds of toys earmarked for children in Northern First Nations arrived in Thunder Bay Thursday, and they made quite the entrance. A Canadian Air Force C-17 Globemaster touched down as part of the annual Toys for the North campaign. The jet that regularly carries troops was filled with pallets of gifts for kids in North Caribou Lake and Keewaywin. It's the 7th year that the RCMP and Gardewine Transportation have partnered with North Star Air for the charitable program. North Star CEO Jeff Stout says they look forward to it every year.
We've always seen Toys for North as an amazing opportunity to give back to the communities that support us throughout the year. It hasn't been any more true than the last couple of years when COVID has really had a huge impact on our operation and our position in these communities as an essential service provider.
The toys will be sorted here in Thunder Bay this upcoming week and will then be flown by North Star Air staff and Santa Claus up to the remote First Nations later this month. That does it for this week's edition of Northwest Newsweek. Thanks so much for joining us.